Remember to subscribe to our channel.
Okay, good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this month's webinar in the Leading the Lean webinar training series. My name is Eric Whitley. I will be your host and your presenter today, talking about a topic that's pretty near and dear to my heart, something I've worked many, many years of in the field of, and that's total productive maintenance and more to that operator-based maintenance or autonomous maintenance as it's called in TPM. Glad to have you here. Hope everybody's being safe. Good to see you on, and appreciate you being here. Hopefully today what I'm going to do is walk through a process that has kind of taken years to develop with inside of Leading the Lean, but I think we've got all of the tools and all of the features needed for you to have a successful total productive maintenance program with inside of Leading the Lean, and I want to get into that and talk about that. So pretty excited about that, and to present that to you and show you the features and how I would go about implementing TPM, and more specifically in this case, operator-based maintenance or autonomous maintenance, as we like to call it within TPM. So I'm going to jump right into that here. So let me make a couple of announcements here. So first of all, kind of the same announcements that I've been making for the last few months. If you haven't had a chance to, please go on to YouTube and go watch us on YouTube. We have two channels on YouTube. We have one called Leaning In. The other one is our Leading the Lean channel. Leaning In is got a lot of nice content on it for videos that you can watch and learn. We do a vlog where we interview industry experts and people who are running plants around the world, and we interview them and try to get their insights. We also do some pretty nice content around that you could use in training courses or to just teach people about different topics. The Leading the Lean channel is the channel that where we place all of our videos for new features and releases, and you can go watch that. And so please take some time, go into YouTube, find those channels. The Leaning In channel, you got to use the filters and search for the channel itself, and then it'll bring it up. But when you get in there, please like and subscribe to our channels, and that will really help us out, and then you won't miss any videos as they get released. So next thing I want to talk about, we talk about this every month, but we're pretty dang proud of it. Leading the Lean still is ranked #1 on Gartner.com for software reviews and MES softwares out in the industry. We continue to be ranked at the top of all of those major softwares that are out there. And so we would love to hear your review. So if you get a chance, go to Gartner.com/reviews, enter Leading the Lean, you're going to bring up, it's going to ask you to write a review. And we still have quite a few $25 gift cards that are left over. If you write a review, you'll get mailed a $25 Visa card. So please take some time for us. We would appreciate it a bunch. If you'll go to Gartner.com/reviews and write a review on Leading the Lean, we would appreciate it. Thank you very much. Okay, so let's jump right into what we're going to do today. Going to talk about the agenda here. I want to cover basically three things a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about total productive maintenance. For those of you that know me, excuse me, for those of you that don't know me, I've been teaching total productive maintenance ever since about 1997, where I was the total productive maintenance coordinator at Autoliv in North America. And so, like I said, TPM is pretty near and dear to my heart, and have been teaching TPM for a long time, and pretty excited about some of the stuff that we've done inside of Leading the Lean in order to support that process. And so I want to talk a little bit about what is TPM for those of you that are not familiar with it. And then talk about this autonomous maintenance, or operator-based maintenance. I call it both things because some people have a hard time with the name of autonomous maintenance, but it basically is the same thing. I'm kind of a purist and have learned it all the way from the beginning. So I'm going to continue to call it autonomous maintenance, but you guys can call it whatever you want inside of your plants. It's the same thing. It has the same meaning and strategies to it. So also autonomous maintenance in leading to lean. Then what I want to do is I want to walk through autonomous maintenance and kind of show you the tools and the features that we've put in and how I think you should, if you haven't already started it, how you should be implementing your operator maintenance processes inside of leading to lean, and how you should be managing that inside of leading to lean if you haven't started that already. So let's just jump right into it. Let's talk a little bit about what is TPM, or total productive maintenance. Some people call it total productive manufacturing. I had one company call it "This Plant Is Mine." So it really is a strategy. It's a philosophy about how you're going to maintain your equipment. You know, I've always said in the past that maintenance is really not the group of people within inside of the plant, or is it the physical location of where that group of people store their toolboxes on a daily basis, or where they meet or congregate within inside of the plant. It is what maintenance is the philosophy that you choose of how to take care and support the production equipment. With that said, when you are in a reactive mode, when you're in reactive maintenance, you must understand that you have chosen that as your philosophy. And in order to get out of reactive maintenance, just like any other thing that's kind of bad, you first have to recognize that in a reactive maintenance mode, you have chosen that philosophy as the way you are going to do maintenance within inside of your facility. Total productive maintenance is a different philosophy on how to manage the equipment and help you get out of that reactive mode and into that more proactive and preventative mode of how to maintain the equipment. There's a lot that goes into this when you actually do that, right? So we use this slide a lot when we try to explain what leading to lean does and how it interacts with all the other systems out there that you may have in your plant. But you're going to notice something that's very kind of telling here, that the main things that we deal with inside of leading to lean is the people and the workflows and the machines and the materials. And what's really interesting is that if you look at this, TPM really does the same thing. It really looks at the people, it looks at the machines, it looks at the workflows and the way that you actually do the work out on the shop floor when it comes to maintenance. And so the reason why it's called total productive maintenance is because when we say total productive maintenance, we have to understand that everybody is involved in the reliability of the piece of equipment. I always use the scenario and say, listen, let's say tomorrow the powers to be within inside of your company decide that you're going to try to produce your product and not use the equipment. The equipment is so much of a pain to take care of, it's so costly to take care of, that you're gonna attempt to produce your product without production equipment. And then you quickly realize, well, that can't happen. That's not something we can do. But if you begin to look at who that impacts, if you decide not to run the equipment, it doesn't just impact production, and it doesn't just impact maintenance. It begins to impact everybody within the facility and everybody within the company, whether it's purchasing, whether it's human resources, whether it's, engineering or whoever. When we decide and when we have unreliable equipment, it impacts everybody in the business. And so therefore, we have to make the statement that it is incumbent upon everybody to make sure that they're doing everything they can to make sure that the machinery is running and that it's putting product out the back door. So that's why we call it total productive maintenance, because everybody has to be involved in that. In all departments, everybody is relying, if you will, on the equipment running in order for their jobs to be safe and secure, in order for the company to make a profit, in order for the customer to be satisfied. Everybody under that roof relies on that equipment. So it's total productive maintenance. And so that's why we call it total productive maintenance. And it's an overall arching philosophy on how to take care of that equipment. Within TPM, the one thing that we understand is that our job inside of maintenance and inside of the maintenance philosophy is to manage what we call these 6 big losses, right? So it's important that we are understanding what these 6 losses are, because in leading to lean and in total productive maintenance, we do a very good job of capturing these, and we have to understand them in order to do that. And this is some old stuff, but failures really is one of, and if not the biggest loss that everybody sees. A failure of a piece of equipment. Everybody runs around like a chicken with their head cut off, screaming and yelling, wanting to know when it's going to be up, and all of that happens. So that's a loss that we incur inside of the facility. But another loss that we incur a lot of, and this is very controversial when it comes to how you actually count this time, is setups or changeovers or adjustments. All of that is downtime as well. That's loss. That's loss of production. And so we have to count that, and L2L does a great job of counting that as well. Idling and minor stoppage is another loss, and this is one that a lot of people do not look at. And so if in leading to lean, if you are using your operator fixes, this is where we capture idling and minor stops. I recall one time way back, I was a supervisor and I had a production line, and everybody kept talking about downtime and downtime and downtime. And one day we actually had like 30 or 45 minutes of downtime. And my bosses and everybody wanted to know what that was all about. And I made the statement. I said, you know, what's funny is that I have a machine that's running, and about every 5th part, my operator has to stop and reset the machine. And they have to do that. And it takes about 30 seconds, and they have to do that probably 300 times a day. And nobody is worried about that. And I'm trying to get that fixed. And so here I'm dealing with 100 minutes of downtime a day, and everybody's worried about the 30-minute breakdown. So idling and minor stoppages is really a big deal, and we need to capture that as well. And so we're following that. Reduce speed. We do in leading to lean, we take tack time and are able to take all of the metrics that you have, but the reduction of the speed is important. And I've grew up in racing, and I follow racing, and you know, this is a scenario of where we have a race car that's on the track and it runs the entire race, but it runs 5 miles an hour slower than the winner of the race. And so we're going to lose. And so we have to be able to count that. We have to be able to see that, find that, and go work on that as well. Defects and rework. Anytime we produce a part that we cannot sell, we, in a sense, we use every single resource we have at our disposal. We use the machine, we use the power, we use the labor, we use time, we use everything to produce something that's not going to generate any profit. And so we want to count that. We have to be able to look at it as well. So these are the 6 losses in there. And then the last one is startup loss. This is loss that you incur when you start a machine up after a changeover, or after a shift, or after a layoff, or maybe you shut down for a couple of weeks over Christmas or during the summer, and you come in and you start up the product, or maybe you have to come in and warm up the machines in the morning or something like that. The loss that you incur waiting for those machines to get up to speed and to actually begin to produce good product is something that we need to capture as well. And we do that within leading to lean when it comes to the operator portal. So understanding these 6 losses is really important, because it's something that we're going to look at as we go through an entire TPM system, and especially in autonomous maintenance. It's important that your operators understand these 6 losses as well. And so we want to focus in on those. We want to be able to understand that. With that said, by the way, I'm going to make these slides available. So if you want these slides for this presentation, you're more than welcome to them. Just send a ticket into support, and we'll get you these slides. I'll make them available right after we get done. Okay. So TPM in it has what we call pillars, and whether you've been part of total productive maintenance from, its early inception in the 50s and 60s in Japan, or as it moved over into the United States in the late 70s and early 80s, and the early 80s to late 80s when it really took off and really grabbed a hold of. Some people have 6 pillars, some have 5. A gentleman by the name of Saiichi Nakajima, he has 6 pillars in his. Japan Institute of Plant Maintenance has 6 in theirs. Some have 7, some have 8. So it just kind of depends on what you see. They're all basically the same thing. But what we're going to talk about today in the pillars of TPM is this autonomous maintenance. And so you're going to want to make sure that that you understand these terms as we go forward. I will tell you, just kind of a side note here, that we made a decision at L2L quite a few years ago as we began to discuss what do we want to call these things. We know that people call them many different things out in industry, and the decision was made was, let's keep the original names, because if you go to search for a book, or if you go to search on Google or something like that, we want the name within Leading to Lean to be the same as what you're going to be able to go read out in the general public. So we're going to call it autonomous maintenance as we go forward here. So everything is based on this L2L's lean execution system. We've put everything in place, and those of you who know the L2L really well will know that we, each one of those pillars, we have feature sets, and we have things that you can use with inside of L2L that's going to help you with each one of those pillars. And we've tried to do that as we've grown the software as well. So let's talk a little bit about autonomous maintenance, but I want to talk about this zero failure principle. And what I mean by that is that TPM really, one of the goals of TPM is to get into zero failure. How do we get down to zero failure? Well, one of the major misconceptions of machine failure and machine breakdowns is the fact that, that really is the thing that everybody sees. It really is the tip of the iceberg, if you will, the one thing that everybody pays attention to. But within autonomous maintenance, and this is really where autonomous maintenance kind of focuses in on, is that we know that on a piece of equipment, there are these things that are called hidden abnormalities. And what are hidden abnormalities? Well, hidden abnormalities can be wear or play. It can be damage to the machine, overheating. You can see where paint is burnt on the machine, or dirt, contamination. Some studies have suggested early, I think this was back in the 90s, there was a study out by one of the universities that said 70% of all of your failures are due to contamination and improper lubrication, the root cause of those. So dirt and dust and those things and wear and slack are really, really important to understand what they are. And so what we do with inside of autonomous maintenance is we concentrate on this zero failure principle. And why is that? Well, because these things, these problems that you have, these hidden abnormalities, these are the beginning of failure. They are failure in its infancy, if you will, and they are going to grow up to be failures. And so what we want to do is we want to begin to focus in on those things, and that really is what autonomous maintenance does. So let's talk about what it's not first, okay? Because it's important to understand that. This is where a lot of people struggle. Autonomous maintenance is not about handing out tools to the operators and saying, hey, here you go, have at it, go fix it. You guys are now maintenance. That's not what this is about. And so we need to understand that up front. It's also not about handing over those mundane things that maintenance people really don't like to do. I'm a tinkerer. I like to work on race cars. I like to work on my fishing boat and stuff like that. I don't really, there's some things that I kind of don't like to do. I want to go fix something, right? And that bleeds over into a mechanic's life as well, that they don't want to be out there having to check gauges every day, or they don't want to be out there having to do some mundane things. So What autonomous maintenance is not, it's not handing off those mundane things to the operators just because we as maintenance people find it boring. We have to understand that we're not giving them these endless checklists of things to go look at, right? We have to make sure that it's a vital part of actually taking care of the equipment. And it's not a complete separation of what we do and what you do. Listen, over the years, I've run into situations where I've had operators who have literally never held an Allen wrench in their hand and didn't know what an Allen wrench was. And I've also had operators who go home on the weekend and can change the transmission in their car. And so you can't make a clear-cut black-white separation of here's what operators do and here's what mechanics do, because it really is not that black and white. And so you've got to make sure, and that's where our skill stuff comes into play here as well. Okay. And it's also not an abdication from the maintenance department for creating uptime on the equipment. Listen, let's be real about this. A maintenance department's job is to create reliability of the production equipment. It's not there to fix the equipment. Fixing the equipment is part of creating reliability. So the maintenance department cannot abdicate their responsibility of the goal being they are there to create uptime and create reliability of the equipment. That's not what autonomous maintenance is. It's not handing that off to the operations folks. So just to make sure that maintenance folks understand that it's not an abdication of that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about what autonomous maintenance is. It's a practice based on skills, standard work, if you will, of the frontline operators. The operators being the front line of the maintenance process, and I liken it to the operator of a vehicle. People that get in a car, they should do some basic stuff. They should make sure it has gas. They should make sure it has air in the tires. They should make sure that, if the check engine light comes on, they take it into a mechanic and get it fixed. There's some basic things. They are the front line of the maintenance system for that piece of equipment. That same philosophy needs to hold true as well for the operators out on the shop floor. Just like the maintenance people cannot abdicate responsibility for creating uptime, the operations folks cannot abdicate responsibility for being the eyes and ears and the front line of that equipment. Okay. What autonomous maintenance is a process and procedures and checklists and inspections to help the frontline operators identify those hidden abnormalities. The reason why you clean a piece of equipment is to inspect the piece of equipment. It's not to make it look nice. It's to find the hidden abnormalities. When we find a hidden abnormality early, we can avoid the downtime. Planned maintenance work is 4 to 10 times less expensive than reactive maintenance work. If I can train an operator that if you see odd looking metal dust coming out of a bearing, or if you hear a squeak or something like that, let us know early, and I can get that fixed in a planned manner, I can save a lot of time and a lot of money as opposed to just letting it fail. So autonomous maintenance is giving them the skill and the ability to be that frontline eyes and ears as well, right? And it really is a process to improve the collaboration between maintenance and operations, because everybody's working towards the same goal. Everybody understands that this machine has to run, and we want to do the best we can in order to get it to that point, okay? Autonomous maintenance comes in 7 steps. And this is pretty typical throughout industry, and they've kind of changed, and they change a little with inside of Leading to Lean when we begin to, this stuff was all designed back in the day. I mean, I can remember, it was really a big deal when we were using like Polaroid cameras to be able to take a picture of a standard, and we were taping cut out Polaroid pictures to an A3 sheet in order to build a standard, or we were drawing them by hand. Then the digital camera came around and we were able to print that, and now we're to the digital documents with inside of Leading the Lean. So these things have kind of changed a little bit over the years in order to get to that point. But the basic root of them have not changed. So step one is to do this initial cleaning and inspection. Our job is to go out and actually find the abnormalities on that piece of equipment. And I'll talk a little bit about the process that we have in place for these. The second thing is to eliminate contamination. Find it, figure out where it's coming from, and then eliminate it and keep it from coming back, because it really does have a major effect on our downtime. Then creating machine standards. Once we clean and inspect, once we fix all the abnormalities, once we eliminate the contamination from getting on the piece of equipment, now our job is to come up with a standard that says, how do we keep this piece of equipment at this level from here on out? And so we come up with a process to do that. Then we develop skills and training. I talked about people not knowing what an Allen wrench is and people being able to install their own transmissions. There's a ton of skills in between that run the entire gambit of what people will know and what people can do. And we can train people and give them the skills to become better and better and better at the process as we do that. Then the next thing is that we want to make sure we have those routine and ongoing inspections of the equipment every day, that we're looking at it, that we're doing the things that we need to in order to identify those abnormalities and inspect the machine. Then we begin to look at implementing controls and standards, and I'll show you a few examples about what I'm talking about here, but we're talking visual controls on the machines here and visual standards that make it easier for the operator and easier for maintenance to do their job when it comes to this ongoing inspections and stuff. And then finally is to implement Kaizen activities around the entire autonomous maintenance process, making sure that we are constantly getting better and that we are giving people the incentive to get better, right? And so there's a little bit of I guess a ditty you could say that I've used for years and years and years. Autonomous maintenance is best wrapped up into this. It's clean to inspect, inspect to detect, detect to correct, correct to perfect, and perfect to whatever you decide you're doing this for. Profits, a better workplace, a safer environment. You decide what that's for. But an easy way to remember autonomous maintenance and what we do inside of autonomous maintenance is just that: clean to inspect, inspect to detect, detect to correct, correct to perfect, and then you decide what your perfection is for. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about what we do and how we put together this autonomous maintenance and this operator-based maintenance process inside of Leading the Lean, and some of the features that are in L2L for that. So I'm going to give you kind of what I would do if I was there in your plant and I was going to set up an autonomous maintenance program and I was going to try to get people started. This is how I would go about it. So the first thing that I would do would be to create a TPM abnormality dispatch type. What I want to be able to do is I want to give my frontline operators a path and an avenue that if they see a problem, they can quickly put in an abnormality that people will look at and be able to go get fixed early and often. Right? And then I would really concentrate on those things. So first thing I do in Leading the Lean, go in, put a TPM abnormality dispatch type or a number of dispatch types if you wanted to break those out into categories or however you wanted to do that. But give the frontline folks a way to actually put in that problem to where that small minor thing that they see every day is going to come and get fixed, right? The next thing I would do would be in your Lean tools to create a Kaizen event around a piece of equipment. Go concentrate on a piece of equipment and say, we're going to go perform a TPM activity on this piece of equipment. In this case, I've got an example of a press here. You could assign team members, you can assign, your budget, all of that with inside of Leading the Lean is that you create this Kaizen event around concentrating on this one piece of equipment. Then I would go out and actually do a Kaizen event around this piece of equipment. And I would start off with that autonomous maintenance process, start to clean and inspect and start going down this road that I was talking about here earlier, right? The next thing I would do, here's some examples. I just thought I'd throw in some examples of some abnormalities that I've seen over the years as we've gone out and done some of these things. And some of your guys' plants may look like this and some of them may not, but yeah, we've seen some doozies over the years of abnormalities, and all of these things are abnormalities, right? What's an abnormality? Well, it's something that is not perfect. And so if I'm going to work towards perfection, then an abnormality is something that is not perfect, and I want to put that in and I want to get that fixed, right? So you can see where contamination has really had an issue with these machines, and we've really seen some really dirty facilities. There are temporary fixes everywhere out on machines. These will become a downtime at some point in time, so you're going to want to identify those, get them fixed. We begin to see the world with what we call TPM eyes, is because we see these things and we don't let them be normal, right? We manage the abnormal. We don't manage the normal. So we want to see the abnormal and go manage the abnormal here, right? Small cracks, broken wires, frayed wires, all of that. It can be a safety issue. It can be a quality issue. It can be, product related or whatever. You want to begin to really look at this machine as you clean and inspect and find those abnormalities, and then go get them fixed, because all of this is going to be downtime at some point in time later on in the timeline, and it's just going to cause more heartache. So I would put a Kaizen event together. I would go out, I would clean and inspect, go get some buckets, go get some Windex, whatever it is you clean with, start wiping down this equipment and help people to identify these abnormalities as they go out there and put them into Leading the Lean as a dispatch. And then you can sort them out and go put a work order against them or schedule them and go get them fixed, okay? Step two that I would do would be to begin to eliminate that contamination. Identify the contamination and then work with your team and eliminate that. So go through and where you're seeing those contaminations, start putting Kaizen actions against that. And you can see over here on the right where if you create a Kaizen event, you can go start putting dispatches and work orders. You can even do Yokotins. John did a great job last month of talking about the lean tools in here. You can go find that. We're going to have that up on the YouTube channel here pretty soon. We'll have that posted up. You can go look at that presentation again. So look at those, at that contamination as you go through, and then use the problem solving tool. So if you see a contaminant on a piece of equipment that you're not sure where it comes from or how it got there, use the lean tools and then go launch a problem solving process against that contamination. Select your team and actually go do the work, right? Because it actually helps define, what the root cause. You can track your actions against it. And again, you can launch any dispatches against it. So use the lean tools then to put problem solving together in order to go identify where that contamination is coming from and then how to eliminate it. Sometimes you have to build guards. Sometimes you have to use different processes and different engineering approaches. You see here to the right, one of the things that we started doing was just putting filters on the end of motors in order to keep the contamination out of motors and stuff. So, and you can put those on the checklist and have people have operators change those out. So there's a lot of stuff you can do to go help that piece of equipment and get rid of that contamination, okay? So then once you set and you have those pieces of equipment clean, what you're going to want to do is now you're going to want to use L2L document control, and you're going to want to go create your checklist. And then I think if you were at our conference last year, and I thought I saw him actually on this call here. I think Jeff's on the call. Jeff Cottle from Autoliv did a great presentation of how to put together your checklist in order to do TPM, and some of the fantastic things that they've actually done in order to put together your checklist. So what you do now is you're going to start to create the standard. What do I have to do in order to keep my piece of equipment up to this new standard? I'm going to go put that into checklists. I'm going to put my task into these checklists, and I'm going to create the digital document inside of L2L in order to do that. I know that there's some other folks on here, and I've seen them on here that are doing a great job at their facilities. I don't want to mention their names, but they're doing some really good stuff with the checklist and creating their TPM and their autonomous maintenance checks from there. Once you have those created, now you're going to develop, and it's a handsome guy in that picture. Now you're going to go develop a skill around that. So use the L2L skills module to create a skill around the checklist. So now you make sure and you can verify the skill of the operator, that they actually know how to go do all of those things on the checklist. So this is a great way to use the Leading to Lean skills module. You've got the document inside of document control. Now you can tie the skill directly to it. If you rev the document, the skill will rev, and we can actually go put stuff in there that will help you maintain that equipment on a day-to-day basis. And then, if you change that, the skill revs, and that the operators have to be trained to that new skill. So this is where Leading to Lean skills module comes in, because now what's going to happen is that person is going to go out onto the operator portal. They're going to check into the operator portal. And when they do, that's actually that document is going to show up on the operator portal for them to go do that check. And it's also going to bump against the skills matrix. So now they have the skill to go do that work, and then they're going to be able to be that frontline maintenance for you because of that. So step 5 then is to continue to do that routine and ongoing inspection as you launch that now onto the operator portal using our standard work feature. And if you don't know how to do that inside of the documents, I'm sure we have some training around that. We have webinars around that. You can go find that on the YouTube channel as well. If not, let us know. We'll be glad to show you. Ask your account rep. Be glad to show you how to set up standard work and have it launched right to the operator portal out on the production floor to that. Then you're going to be able to track that. You're going to be able to find it, and you're going to be able to have the operators put in abnormalities as they go through the process. So one key thing is making sure that every time they go through this, as they identify these small abnormalities on the machines during their inspections, during their TPM routines, that they are putting in the abnormalities into Leading to Lean as a dispatch, so that you are able to track those abnormalities and get them fixed early and get them fixed often, right? So it's a great way to shift from reactive to proactive, because you start doing fire prevention instead of firefighting, okay? So now we're launching our routine inspections right to the production line on the operator portal, and people are doing that. And now we're going to go set some standards, right? And so once we've got that in place, we can go start to improve on this stuff. And listen, this is where Lean and TPM and 5S and all of that kind of confluences together, where it all is really part of one whole system of managing the workplace. And so you can do visual controls, you can do 5S, you can do all of these things, and then you can place those onto the checklist. That's going to help people to better keep control of the workplace, right? And better understand where the machine should be and kind of find those readings. Listen, if we didn't ever invent the check engine oil light, there would be far more engines dying these days, as opposed to way back when it was, you just had to watch the oil pressure gauge, or where we didn't even have an oil pressure gauge in a car. So now, these days, we have these systems that are making it very easy to identify when there's a problem, when we want to make our production machinery the same way. So step 6 is to go implement controls and update your checklist with that. And then step 7 for autonomous maintenance is to implement those Kaizen activities. not only do you have to improve the machine, but you have to improve your processes. And so you want to constantly have people putting in Kaizen ideas on how to improve the way that we're doing the work, how to improve the way that we're actually making the machine more reliable, right? You can put Kaizen dispatches in leading to lean, so they're putting that in there. Everybody knows the green button on L2L that's where the Kaizen button lies as well. They can go put in new Kaizens there as well. And then the other thing is, it's really important, make sure that you put in some type of reward and recognition process for Kaizen ideas. So you're asking people to open their brain and give you ideas to make the job better. Whether we like it or not, it's very difficult to incorporate that into the day-to-day work for people to get out of the mundane processes of actually producing product and engage their brain on how to make the process better. We want to incentivize that. We want to bring it out and recognize it. So you're going to want to make sure you're going to put rewards and recognitions into the process for Kaizen ideas to make things better. Okay. So, and then you have all those Kaizen ideas and you can go work on that. I would recommend, because I was one of them, you're going to want to have somebody who is a total productive maintenance coordinator, or maybe even one of the admins in L2L is kind of overseeing that. And part of their job is to make the system better. Okay. All right. And then finally, so let's go back and do a little recap of the kind of the features in L2L that we use for autonomous maintenance. So we talked about dispatches for abnormalities. Make sure that we're capturing all of those abnormalities in leading to lean. We talked about using the lean tool features and functions for Kaizen to start off your process and go do a Kaizen event out on the piece of equipment, using that problem solving tool inside of the lean tools to do your root cause contamination and identify the root causes of those things. Putting together those checklists inside of document control so that they're controlled and you have digital documents in that you have the ability to put photos, you have the ability to put movies, all kinds of stuff in there, high and low control limits. And we can get into the checklist here. If you want to go learn more about that, go check out the webinar on that. Use the skills module now that you've got this checklist in place, create a skill around the checklist so that people know how to use the checklist. Make sure you know that they know, and so that they're properly looking at the piece of equipment. And you know that through verification using the skills module. Once you have that document in place, put together your standard work documents. Launch those standard work documents out to the operator portal so that they're showing up on the operator portal by shift or by time, so that they're taking a look at that and that they actually have to go do that. And it's turning red or turning green. Some of you may even have the feature on where it pops up in front of them that they actually have to go do it in order to remove that off the screen, right? Like I talked about, adding videos and photos to the checklist for your visual standards. Go do the work on the machine. Make it easier for people to inspect that piece of equipment. Make it easier for people to understand what that equipment is doing. And then the last thing is continuously improve the process. Always make it easier to inspect. Always make it easier to remove contamination. Always make it easier to keep the piece of equipment clean, right? The best way to remove contamination is to never let contamination get on the piece of equipment. So always work towards that, okay? So those are the features that we use inside of leading the lean for autonomous maintenance. Hopefully, I've covered enough here that you can understand, kind of how to get started if you haven't got started yet. Do me a favor, take 1 minute for me and go fill out the poll here. I just launched the poll, and go answer some questions. But if you have further questions about how to do this, get a hold of your site rep, get a hold of your leading the lean person, send an email into support. We'll be glad to answer any questions that you have about getting this set up. If there's some features on here that you don't have, if you're not using the skill module, if you're not using the lean tools, get a hold of us here. We'll be able to help you out with that. We'll get you in touch with somebody that's going to be able to get those turned on for you and talk about getting that into your package. So anyways, go take a look at that. Let us know what you need, how we can help, and we'd be glad to do that. So Again, thanks for listening. And so now I'm going to ask, are there any questions that we have? And I'm looking here at the Q&A, and I don't see any questions coming in, but is there any questions that anybody has around total productive maintenance that we need to look at, or I can try to answer here? So David just asked, is this going to go on the YouTube channel? Yes, David, I'm going to put this on on YouTube, on Leaning In, and on the L2L channel. So please go in there and subscribe to that. If you haven't already done that, you'll be able to watch that. And I think what we've been doing as well, we started this last month, is that we follow up an email with everybody. All of the admins are getting an email with a link to the webinar on YouTube. So look for that as well. I think we did that last month to great success. A lot of people watched the webinar kind of post presentation. So that was really good. So good question. Thanks, man. Any other questions? Okay, well, with that, I'm going to say thank you all very much. Thanks for attending, and look forward to next month's webinar. And we appreciate you being a part of the Leading the Lean family. We appreciate you using L2L. We love the way that you love our software. And so we're looking forward to continue to serve you guys and kind of get you what you need. A lot of kind of fun stuff coming as well. From Leading the Lean, and some really cool stuff has come in the past few months. And so hopefully you've been able to take advantage of that stuff. So thank you very much. And we will see you next month.